It is your boy. We got darkest kids TV shows ever invented. Oh, this is Nick. Ever made. Spooky content.
It's the winter of 1985. A family living in a remote region of the
1985.
Philippines receives
Oh,
a
this is
package
a
at their
lot.
door, which contained a single VHS tape and a note stating that the contents were for the children of the house.
lock
And
in.
so the kids were gathered up one by one and sat in front of the television where the tape began
Nick
to
is on,
play,
lock in.
introducing them to a brand new show called
Life with Grandpa.
Life with Grandpa.
Whoa,
This
dude,
was
that
the
was
experience
already
for hundreds
terrifying.
of
What
kids
the heck?
across the world, made to watch.
I was gonna, when I was a kid, I don't know what cartoon this is, but it was my favorite one, and it was made by Play-Doh or something, and then it was like stop motion or something, and they'd throw cotton balls into the sky, they throw like water in it, it'd rain. It was like Play-Doh clay. I have no idea how to even explain it. That and Dragon Tales. The other one feels like a fever dream because I'm like, that was just a random, it was like a farm show.
A seemingly harmless
I don't
puppet
know.
show about a grandpa and his family, with most of the young viewers
Harming-
loving it,
Yo,
gladly
this-
watching this
oh, you
episode and
really
the
see
many
the
others
dad-
that
the
would be
dad
sent later
looks
on,
cooked.
over and over again, blissfully unaware that what they were being shown would someday come to be known as one of the most disturbing rabbit holes in the history of children's media.
This is the scariest.
This is the story of
puppets.
Life with Grandpa, the darkest kid show ever made.
Nothing can harm you when Jesus is near.
Like, I understand.
Can I persuade you to subscribe?
Before we dive any
I
further down this
persuade
rabbit
you
hole, I
to
want to first thank today's
subscribe.
video sponsor, Saley. Throughout my life, I've taken countless trips to
eSIM
Canada as I live
service.
right by the border,
Ah.
and I'm so used to going there that at this point it doesn't even feel like I'm traveling to another country until I see the roaming charges on my phone bill. This has literally cost me hundreds of dollars
Oh.
over the years, but luckily I don't have to waste another cent thanks to Saley. Saley is a new
That's why
eSIM
WhatsApp
service
app, WhatsApp app is insane or whatever, and is ruining a lot of the phone companies. Or I'm not saying use what, because I wouldn't use it. I just have iMessage, or sometimes it sends in green, and I'm like, am I blocked? No. But this is cool if you're like country hopping. But that's why it's like a lot of those texting apps are
created by Nord Security,
Take
and it's
it over.
incredibly easy. It way more
Let's go
activates
to
as
his
available on
link.
So if this sounds like a plan, all you have to do
It's Crowley. Code Crowley, 15% off. I'm covering the
is download the app and use
the
code Crowley at
URL.
checkout.
Yeah, but
or
you
you
can
can also
scan
scan the
it,
code on screen
scans
right
the
now and get
face.
started today.
But we're back. Spooky kids TV show.
She loved to play on the steep hill.
That's terrifying. The way that walks. Like the grandma looks normal. If they blinked, I think they're missing eyes, bro. They
This
have
is Life
eyes,
with
bro.
Grandpa, a straight-to-VHS show made for children created
It looked
sometime
normal
in the
though
mid-80s.
if they
The program
blinked,
followed a family
I
of
think.
humanoid
It looks
puppets on their
sick,
journey
bro.
to teach the audience lessons loosely based on Christianity
It'd be
through the
such
use
a
of
cool
stories,
TV
skits,
show
and songs,
if those puppets
acting as a
blinked.
guide for children to live their best possible lives.
This is when
for
they
Jesus.
learn. They had to learn. Like this freeze frame, I'm like wholesome. Like it looks kind of creepy.
We're continuing with some more lessons about prayer. Are you all ready?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Lord. Such sweethearts.
The show was set up in an episodic fashion, never following any main
I don't know.
overarching
I don't know about
storyline,
this.
and instead, each installment was
It's getting
composed of a series of shorter segments,
weird.
recounting past
Look at the kid's
experiences
neck,
from this
bro.
family, with an occasional musical number thrown in here and there.
Wait, what makes this dark though? It's definitely a little creepy.
Unsurprisingly, the main character of the
They're
crew
real
was Grandpa,
people.
who acted as the show's host, often being the one to teach the episode's central messages
it.
not only to his on-screen family, but to all the kids watching at home.
But it's my kite.
But wouldn't you like to pray that some poor little boy who doesn't have so many toys and blessings as you do will find your kite?
Yes, Grandpa.
As he was made to be a wise, almost religious-like figure
Lets
whose
the
words
kite
were
go.
never questioned.
Someone else will find
Often
it.
seen by his side was his wife, Mother
Like ballin'
Maria,
advice.
though for as often as she's shown, she rarely has much to say.
Yes, thank the Lord for such a good, sweet boy.
Typically only chiming
Just
in when
turns
she's
around,
reiterating
seriously,
Grandpa's
that's so scary.
messages to the children.
Spooky.
And of the children, there was Davida, Techi, and
Davida.
Davidito, with the latter being one of the
Davidito.
show's central
These
figures,
names, bro.
landing right
Tabicha?
next to or potentially even ahead of Grandpa in terms of screen time, as Davidito often got his own segments and
Davidito.
told his own stories directly to the audience.
Hello, children. Would you like to hear some exciting prayer adventures?
Hello, fellow
This
kids.
first story happened
Dude, that
when
guy
I was
is...
very small.
And though it's never outright
He is-
stated, it's clear that Davidito was put on a pedestal, with the child often getting special treatment and being showered in gifts, as the family clearly
Maybe
seemed
this
to
is
favor
like when they're
him.
new to writing.
Thank you, Uncle
know?
Al.
It's called a kite.
We want to give you a little surprise because you were such a good witness.
This brand new
And
tape
voice
recorder
acting.
is for
Maybe
you.
it's just like the time.
Thank you, Jesus.
With there never being an
you,
explanation as
Jesus.
to
Yeah,
why.
but what makes it
This is the
spook,
core
dude?
group of
It's
Life
already
with
kind
Grandpa,
of...
with the only other reoccurring characters being Aunt Sarah and Uncle Elf, a couple that was often shown around the house helping look after the kids. And despite this looking
They have
like
different
something pulled
eyes?
straight from the depths of the uncanny valley, the content within the show didn't really seem all that troublesome. In fact, it appeared fairly normal.
Are they gonna have, like,
and not too
Burning in
unlike the
Hell
many other
episode or
low-budget
something?
religious shows of the time, highlighting themes like obedience,
was
Nothing
Jesus in the
short
corner.
of right is right.
Yes, so the right thing is...
To obey.
sharing,
Good morning,
I don't like
Davida.
that.
I have a surprise for you.
I don't just follow
Can I
orders.
see it? I would like to share my cars with you. Which ones do you like?
and
Yeah,
loving
but
everyone.
instead of hold on, ready? I just said I don't follow orders. We'll get back to this to Yap. I do believe that if you look at things like militarant or whatever, never follow orders. But if it's like a restaurant, so your wife is hungry, oh my tummy hurts or whatever, I'm like, bing bong, dude. That's why it's like I follow orders, but only restaurant orders. I'm like, you hungry? Water, food, got you. Or I'll go get a ramekin with ketchup. I'll drop everything I'm doing. Everything shatters. No. But it's like don't obey and follow orders, which is anybody did. Make sure it's a restaurant.
That's really
So,
sweet of you, David. Thank you for that nice, generous
oh, my
present.
Cetus.
What present?
That nice kiss. A kiss makes a real beautiful gift or present.
Though mixed within these fairly standard teachings, you'll find
you
other
want a gift?
moments that are far more unusual.
No,
Don't run down that gravel
it's a
hill.
present, dude. No, don't run down that gravel. She just
Davida!
Davida. She
Oh,
fell.
Davida.
She's bleeding, and her cut is all covered with dirt.
And I don't even have a tissue to wipe it with. I'll just have to lick it clean and spit out the dirt.
The show featured a lot of strange underlying themes that seemed to
Okay,
have
now
nothing to do
why?
with religion, or at least not the conventional beliefs of Christianity, with one of the more obvious being its unprompted disdain for doctors.
We'll have to really pray that there won't be a scar.
Soon afterwards, there was no sign at all of the deep gash on Davida's forehead. Surely a doctor would have stitched it, but our God is still a God of miracles. Praise the Lord.
As well as its constant endorsement of spanking.
Oh my God, this might be Mormon, Jehovah's Witness. No, because they Jehovah's Witness. This might be Jehovah's Witness, because they don't believe in doctors. My dad knows someone that's wife was giving birth and she died because she couldn't accept a blood transfusion, because accepting someone else's blood is like against their religion, I guess. I don't know.
Jesus spanks us because he loves us and wants us to obey and
I
be
don't
good.
know, dude. Listen to the doctors.
We're really sorry. So if the Lord should spank
Was he?
you a little bit or correct you, it's for your own good. It's because he loves you and wants you to be good and obey.
And while these are certainly strange, by far the most glaring indication that Life with
Mom.
Grandpa wasn't just your typical kid show came from the program's stance on women, with the first major example coming from a song made for the young girls watching on.
So do the dishes and clean the floor, and God can show us something more. I'm ready for any job at all, whether it's great or whether it's small. I'm ready to go, ready to stay, ready my place to fill. Ready for service, lowly or great, ready to do God's will.
The message behind this song is clear. If you're a woman, then it's your job to cook, clean, and have babies. And that's about it, as this is God's will and your sole purpose for existing. And while this ideology was certainly not as controversial at the time, the show took it even further, as it hammered home this idea to all the children watching on by repeating one line at the end over and over again.
Trust and obey, for there's no other way. Trust and obey, for there's no other way.
What?
Trust and obey,
Oh, trust.
for there's no other way.
Making it clear that this was a lesson that the showrunners didn't want these kids to question. But as comically offensive as this song is, it was far from the worst that the show had to offer.
It gets worse.
It's time for our electric song.
He's a friendly scientist, a real good friend of ours.
In another episode, we're
He's
shown
a
a musical
friendly
number about
scientist.
Grandpa, who's portrayed as a scientist that's always busy working, though the song is really less about him and more about his love interest.
He's fucking a robot? He's in love with a robot, that's right. Look at the boobies on the robot.
A robot, with long hair and nude female breasts. It's one of the most surreal things that I've ever seen on a kid's show, as this thing was clearly meant to be a
Blur them
portrayal of
out.
Grandpa's wife
Nick,
and
Nick.
women in general, likening them
boobies
to
on the
robots.
robot?
Though unlike the previous
Nick,
demeaning song,
they're
this
not even
number is
blurred,
blatantly
dude.
perverted,
Yo.
as it not only shows the
No,
robot
now that
having
we know,
breasts,
dude.
but it also shows
those
Grandpa
get
fondling
robot.
them as well.
Oh, no,
and these perversions
Grandpa.
weren't even exclusive to its imagery.
Dude, why? Is this in a kid's TV show? This is actually a bit wild.
It's shocking for so many reasons, but mainly due to the fact that this was on a show that was literally made for toddlers and young children, who are now being shown this clearly explicit content. And most disturbing of all is the realization that this sexualized material was actually nothing new to the world of Life with Grandpa. Predating the puppets, there was a little-known illustrated book series called Life of Grandpa, with the show practically being a shot-for-shot remake of this book series, featuring the same exact characters and stories. And much like the show, the series was also a religious guide created for children. In its pages, you'll find themes about morality and lessons made to guide you towards a proper way of living through this religion. But these books also had a very apparent dark side, one far worse than the show would inspire.
The worst type of comic books.
In the chapter Real Fathers, we're shown a scene where Techi and Davidito question why they have two different skin
There's a
colors,
brown.
despite them being
Oh.
siblings, as Techi noticed that Davidito's skin appeared light brown, while hers was almost pure white, to which Grandpa then explains to them how his wife and their mother had slept with other men. See, God used Timothy and Carlos only to fuck mama so that I could have you both. They were just like an instrument or tool that Jesus used to help create you wonderful little children for his kingdom. Praise the Lord. This was followed by an in-depth explanation of what that scene looked like, including images depicting the act. Examples like this are prevalent all throughout the pages of Life with Grandpa, with erotic material being shown constantly with no regard as to how inappropriate this is to be showing kids, which begs the obvious question: why? Why was Life with Grandpa so blatantly perverted? Well, the answer lies with the author of the books, and the reason for the show's existence.
Oh my god, that's
David Berg.
Is he Jehovah's
He'll send
Witness?
his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. That's when Jesus is going to come back to rapture.
That guy
his
looks like
saints,
the grandpa
gather
guy.
them together.
Born in 1919, David grew up a devout believer in Christianity,
That's so
but wanted
sweet,
something
David.
more from the religion. He dreamed of one day starting his own group with his own teachings, and in 1968, at the ripe age
me?
of 50, he decided it was time to do just
No?
that. The group began in Huntington Beach, California, and went by many names over the years, like Teens for Christ, the Children of God, the Family of Love, the Family International, or just the Family. But regardless of its name, there was no denying what this group was: a cult. A cult led by David Berg. Berg would find young hippies and those struggling with drug addiction and mental health issues, and convince them to join his group by stating that the end of the world was coming soon, and that they needed to follow in his path and join his family to save their souls. It was pretty standard cult ideology, but at the time it was extremely effective, with the sect amassing a staggering 10,000 members at its peak. And at first, David got by with fairly standard teachings from the Bible, although this wouldn't last. After some time, Berg began addressing his followers via frequent illustrated messages called Mo letters that featured his ramblings and teachings from the time, with Berg slowly ingraining into his members that the contents of these letters should be taken as seriously, if not more so, than the Bible. In one of these letters sent out in 1972, Berg claimed that God was going to destroy the United
Dude, that's like he just made his own podcast or something by sending letters out.
States, and that the group needed to flee the country immediately, with Berg demanding that his followers spread out all across the globe and open up communal homes where members could live as one, far away from the public eye. As a result, many members packed up their things and left right away, leading to roughly 130 communities being established across 70 different countries, essentially overnight. This mass migration had an extremely significant impact on the family, as it left practically the entire group outside of the United States, and more importantly, outside of the United States jurisdiction, meaning that Berg can now get away with far more than he used to. And unsurprisingly, this is where he began to tighten his control. The full-time members were made to give up all of their earthly possessions to the group and cease all contact with their family and friends who were non-believers, cutting them off from the outside world completely. And these restrictions also applied to the media they consumed.
I decided I would limit how much I would watch the TV. Cause now I've got the answer. It's the slave, I'm the master. It no longer has its spell on me.
In his teachings, Berg denounced all forms of entertainment made outside of the cult, since he believed that this would poison the minds of his members and potentially sway them into leaving the group. And so, instead, he insisted that his followers only consume media that was produced directly by the family, with these works often being created by Berg himself or the other followers he enlisted, and then shipped directly to the members' homes, leading to hundreds if not thousands of videos, movies, and TV shows being produced and shared among the family. But for Berg, this wasn't just about providing entertainment. It was really all about controlling the minds of his group, and even more importantly, indoctrination, with his primary targets being children. From birth, most kids were not shown any media other than what the cult gave their parents, with these works quite literally shaping their minds into following everything that the cult believed in without question. The main themes of these were usually things like always be happy,
more than 70 little muscles form a rowdy face,
but only 14 muscles put a smile in its place on your face.
always show love, and never, under any circumstances, question your parents.
Always best to do it 'cause Daddy said so. Do it 'cause Daddy said so. Do it 'cause Daddy said so. Trust, obey, and do it 'cause Daddy said so. Do it 'cause Daddy said so. 'Cause Daddy knows best.
And Life with Grandpa was no exception, as it too was created by the family in order to instill their beliefs into its child viewers, with the line trust and obey being hammered home time and time again, as those creating the programs didn't want their kids questioning any of the practices.
It's a lot
so they were
worse than
teaching them to
Jehovah's
simply
Witness.
smile along and trust the adults. But because the group was the one producing and distributing the content, they basically had no regulations placed on them, meaning that they could include whatever they want in these shows without any repercussions, leading to many of the showrunners exploring some of the group's more controversial beliefs, which becomes extremely troublesome when you realize that the family wasn't just your standard cult, and instead, it was a sex cult.
When you think of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, what are you thinking about? You think about a beautiful naked man and a beautiful naked woman. And what is the first thing that a beautiful naked man and a beautiful naked woman would, of course, naturally do as soon as they saw each other and nobody else around? I think just one look was all it took. And bloop.
David Berg was a deeply perverted man. The idea of sex consumed him and seeped its way into essentially all of his teachings.
I think Adam and Eve are over there behind those bushes right now, busy making, not pina colada, I think they're making some other kind of juices.
And once his followers were outside of the US, he began to preach something he called the law of love, which essentially said that the family should be showing all people love, and that love should come in the form of sex.
I practice what I preach, and I preach sex, boys and girls, hallelujah.
And so he told his followers to open up their relationships to outsiders, calling the practice sharing. as you were made to share your partner in the hopes of enticing new people to join the group. But he wasn't satisfied with just this, and instead he began to mandate that the women of the group participate in something he called flirty fishing. Also known as FF, flirty fishing describes the practice of women going into bars at night in order to pick up lonely men, who they would then entertain for the night. The goal of this was to convince these men to join the family, though more realistically the goal was also to make money, as they were made to charge for their services, with the women being told to seek lonely businessmen. And this is something that Berg not only pushed heavily, but outright mandated, insisting that every woman in the group do this or face being removed from the family, even those who were married. And Berg was so serious about this that he sent every colony report forms so that they could report how much flirty fishing was being done, in order to check their statistics and make sure that they were up to par. Understandably, many women of the group were concerned by this, and wanted nothing to do with it. However, most of them had moved all the way across the world, and sacrificed all of their belongings to be in this group, meaning that their removal would leave them with nothing. They were trapped. Simply put, Berg was forcing the women of the group into prostitution, and he was shameless about it too, calling them God's whores and Christ's hookers. The worst of all, Berg knew that flirty fishing could put these women in grave danger, as he admitted to them that violent assaults were going to happen, but he said that if you want to live, simply don't resist. And if you do get hurt or even killed, that's entirely your fault, as after all, it was God's will. And this was on top of a myriad of other horrific things that Berg said that I can't even repeat here. But the man saying all of these horrific things was the same man who wrote Life with Grandpa, and he used this medium to normalize his sex cult's beliefs for the children watching, which gives more context as to why women were portrayed in the way they were in these books and the show, as Life with Grandpa was breaking down the young girls watching and grooming them for a life of prostitution that they were made to accept without question.
Trust and obey, for there's no other way. Trust and obey.
Though the show wasn't only for preparing the kids for the perverse lifestyles they were headed for, and instead, they were already becoming well accustomed to it. Throughout his Mo letters, Berg also began to preach that children should be involved in these affairs and sharing as well, stating that he believed age should have nothing to do with it. In fact, he believed that children should be taught about this lifestyle essentially as soon as they're born. And although, again, I can't read his exact words on this, Berg had declared open season on pedophilia, and much like flirty fishing, it was mandatory. The abuse that followed is unimaginable, at a scale far too large to fully know to this day. Abuse that the parents of the children not only allowed, but often participated in, with one of the more notorious large-scale accounts coming from something that the group called the Love Video. This movie was a result of Berg sending out requests to all of the parents to send him lewd videos of their children dancing, which he not only took for himself, but packaged together into a long-form compilation video that was then distributed to all of the cult's members, encouraging the others to film similar content, with Berg going as far as creating a guide to help create the perfect video. And not only did many parents go along with this, but many clearly enjoyed it.
Keita shared with us the video that just came from World Services, and it was so inspiring. It was so beautiful. The love video.
And for this couple specifically, this wasn't the only order that they were happily following.
And it was really a blessing, too, for Joe and Hobo, because they had a good chance to share also with Sally.
Amen.
And so the Lord's really setting us freer and freer to obey and to be free and to show that sample of freedom and love to the world.
That is insane, honestly.
Life with Grandpa was literally created to indoctrinate kids into a pedophilic sex cult, and it makes you realize why exactly it and so many other of the cult's programs were hammering home this point of not questioning your parents or any adults, and to simply obey and smile.
So the right thing is
to obey.
Because the adults in their lives were now suddenly doing unimaginable things to them, and they were being groomed not to question it, making some of the show's segments horrendous in hindsight.
One very special way you can show the big people that you love them is by giving them lots of hugs, kisses, and cuddles. Oh, a child's love and affection really encourages and inspires the big people.
It was normalizing their abuse, and because of this, many children never questioned the horrible assaults that they endured, assaults that were all fueled and pushed by David Berg's sick perversions.
God created boys and girls able to have children,
by about the age of 12 years.
Yeah, looks like Sam Hyde.
God, now he's gonna advocate childhood sex. Yes.
Which were far from theoretical, as Berg himself allegedly partook in this practice
more fucked
repeatedly
than I
with his
thought.
own children and stepchildren, as incest was also
Like
a key
3 in
point
the
of his
morning.
teachings, and his adult followers rarely dared to question this, as those who refused to partake in Berg's latest teachings were again at risk of removal from the group, which is even more devastating for those who had children, as much like all of their possessions, their kids were pledged and belonged to the family. And the kids themselves couldn't seek help either, as those that refused to trust and obey were sent away to actual prison camps owned by the cult until they were basically reprogrammed.
They made camps. I was sent with my brother to the Philippines. We had armed guards from the Filipino military keeping us in. They would publicly beat you if you asked to leave, then try to break you and get you to confess.
And the group continuously got away with this too, thanks in large part to Berg's orchestration of the group leaving the United States, which looking back was almost certainly done on purpose. Plus, many members were actually living in hiding. In fact, all of the members were made to change their names upon joining the group, and most were told to never give out their last names, meaning that if any child wanted to report the abuse that had happened to them, they would be unable to provide even the names of their abusers. And this included Berg too, who at this point lived most of his life in hiding, going by numerous aliases to avoid detection. Aliases like King, Moses, Mo, Dad, and eventually Grandpa.
What the fuck?
The entire show was about him, David Berg, which is why he was
It
shown
did
as a
look like him,
wise,
like, the whole
unquestioned
time.
religious-like figure who the children were made to look up to. And that wasn't all, as the characters shown alongside Berg were also members of his real-life family
This is
that lived
actually
with
so
him in a
fucked.
remote commune. Mother Maria was the nickname of Karen
Is that why he
Zerbe,
was dark?
David's wife who helped him run the cult and facilitate this era of hypersexualization, while Aunt Sarah was
What a
based on
fucking
Sarah
cunt,
Kelly,
no?
the woman in charge of running the prison camp made to punish the kids who dared question the family's beliefs.
Sarah Kelly, who was responsible for me being held against my will in the Philippines.
But the most grotesque detail to come from the revelation of who these characters
Are they a lot older now,
was
then?
that it showcased David Berg's polygamy, as he was actually married to many people in the real world, and 2 characters on the show itself, Mother Maria and Davida, his then 5-year-old stepdaughter. Davida would eventually go on to tell her story, stating that she had been Berg's child bride.
And there was a ceremony with the ring and everything, and once I turned 5 years old was when I was implicated into being one of his queens, so to speak.
Along with allegations that she had been victimized by him countless times. And she wasn't the only victim of Berg's perversions. Techi was often sexualized by Berg publicly, with Berg having stories made and illustrated depicting his fantasies about her when she was just a child. On top of this, numerous people within the group also claimed that she had been outright assaulted by the hands of Berg, as well as many others in the group.
And look at our pretty, pretty girls today. You're dressed in such nice dresses and your hair looks so nice. Yes, you look so pretty for all the children that are watching today.
The context of who these characters are makes this already disturbing show that much more sickening. But of all of the horrible stories to come from the real-life characters of Life with Grandpa,
This is
there's
insane.
one that is far and
There
away the
gets
most
worse.
horrific. The story of Davidito.
Oh, the brown kid?
David is such a handsome boy, isn't he, girls? Would you like for David to share some more lessons?
Yes, Grandpa.
Are you all ready? Okay, David, you have the floor.
His real name was Ricky Rodriguez, and as a baby he was taken in as Berg's son following Maria conceiving him with a man after a night of flirty fishing. And being David's first son, he was given the nickname Davidito. As for David Berg, he viewed this child as essentially a messiah. He began telling his followers that Davidito would one day save them from the apocalypse, causing Davidito to become a celebrity within the group, and worshipped as a religious figure when he was just a baby. Which explains why he was given so much airtime during Life with Grandpa, and why he was constantly being showered with gifts.
We want to give you a little surprise because you were such a good witness.
And for David and Karen, they wanted Davidito's life and childhood to be a guide for all members of the group, as they raised him in what they believed to be the perfect manner for a godly household. And so the couple and several other contributors documented the way he was raised, with daily journal entries that were published as weekly newsletters, and eventually turned into one massive book titled The Story of Davidito. And the family truly believed that this over 700-page book was the ultimate guide for parenting and showed the only proper way to raise a child, though what it actually showed was just how badly Davidito was being abused. Davidito is described laying next to his nude nannies, witnessing orgies involving his own mother, and being touched sexually by the adults around him, with these examples being presented through not only written stories, but actual photographs, with the adults involved having their faces removed and drawings placed over the top of them in order to hide their identities. The book was not only promoting sexual acts with children, but it was outright showing it, and showing it happen to Davidito. And because of this, we have a daily journal entry of all the abuse that this child suffered, starting when he was an infant. Despite all the heinous acts that had been going on within the family, they had up until this point gone virtually unchecked by the public eye. But the story of Davidito would prove to be the first domino to fall, as the book leaked to the press.
Tonight, the cult Children of God, founded by Moses David Berg, he reportedly sanctioned sex among children.
This immediately became a news story all across the world, and it began shining a light on the family and its twisted beliefs. But despite all the constant news coverage, and the story of Davidito being tangible proof of the cult's horrible practices, there was still essentially nothing done to stop them, as very few arrests were ever made as a result, and even fewer resulted in convictions.
How does it end,
So nothing
bro?
was ever done to help Davidito. And so during his entire childhood and his early adult years, he stayed with the group. Though the older he got, the more he began to see the family for what they really were, and the constant pain that he was experiencing eventually made him want to just run away from it all. And so, in 1999, that's exactly what he did, fleeing to the United States in the hopes of starting a new life. Though this was easier said than done, and no amount of distance was enough to keep him away from his tortured past. At one point during his time in the United States, Ricky actually opened up about the struggles he was experiencing on a website made for survivors of the family. And there, he documented just how bad things really were for him and several others behind the scenes, living with Berg, appropriately titling the post,
so much.
Life with Grandpa. It was apparent that he was haunted by this life that he tried to escape, as the trauma was an everyday cycle of hell, and he just couldn't take it anymore.
Do you know that sometimes the Lord likes to test our faith, to teach us patience, and to really make us pray? This is just what happened to me once.
Was he holding a power tool?
Well,
oh my God.
hey everyone.
Are those guns?
I want people to know that even though some of the things that I'm going to try to do are rather shocking and maybe not right in a lot of people's books, I want to explain some of the reasons behind it.
On January 7th, 2005,
Was he
Ricky
shooting
Rodriguez
himself?
set up a video camera in his apartment and expressed his desire to kill his mother and other leaders of the group for all the dreadful things that they had done not only to him, but to all the other children, with his hope being that this would finally bring down the family once and for all.
Wow, that's cool.
My goal is to get those sick bucks, Ma and Peter, and, you know, then I can go to the next life knowing that, you know, that I made a difference.
With Ricky going as far as to show off the various ways that he planned on torturing them.
I'm gonna have to make do. I got my drill here. Got lots of fucking duct tape.
God knows, He hears, He cares. He loves His girls and boys. He gives His very best to those who let Him choose the
That's
toys.
a big ass fucking. That's for like a cow.
By this point, David
Does
Berg
he
had
do
been dead
it?
for years, though the family carried on with his mother, Karen Zerby, assuming full control, which explains why she was the primary target. And much like Berg, Karen spent most of her life in hiding, with Ricky being unable to track her down, though he was able to find Angela Smith, one of the nannies responsible for raising him, as well as one of his most prominent abusers, as she was even shown in the story of Davidito assaulting him. At this point, Ricky was exhausted, and Angela was his last shot at getting intel to help him find his mother and finally carry through on his plans. And so, he invited her over for dinner, under the guise of rejoining the group.
I went home that night and tried to wait patiently for the next day. But the Lord still had more lessons that He wanted to teach me. This is what happened.
Before Ricky could even get the information he was looking for, something in him snapped, and midway through their conversation, Ricky grabbed a knife and stabbed Karen in the arm, and then slit her throat. He fled the area that night, driving for hours until he reached California, the place that years before David Berg had started the family. There, he called his ex-wife, professing to everything he did, saying that he did it mainly for his sister Techi, but he felt no better. In fact, he felt worse. And even looking back at the video, it's very obvious that this was something that Ricky didn't truly want to do, and instead he felt like he had to do it, to avenge everyone that the family had hurt.
I'm not trained. I don't know how to fucking do this. I don't even want to fucking do this. God damn it.
And it was too late to take back what he did. And so he stopped the car in a dark parking lot, sat there for a moment thinking about everything that had happened during his painful life, and ended his suffering once and for all.
I mean, in a way, that's what these fuckers have done to us. They didn't actually, grab a knife and cut us up, but, man, they sure fucked up our brains. That's the way it was at Grandpa and Mama's house. Literally or figuratively, they're going down. So, with that happy thought, I shall leave you.
What the fuck? That's insane.
Ricky Rodriguez's death was devastating for the community of survivors of the family, and it caused shockwaves all throughout the family itself, as his final video was plastered all over the news. And though it didn't happen in the way he expected it or wanted it to, Ricky's life and death undoubtedly contributed to the decline of the family, and helped diminish the cycle of abuse within the group. Starting from the story of Davidito, the public pressure forced Berg to outlaw the widespread abuse that he once preached. And though it is believed that it never really came to an end, it was at the very least significantly reduced. And by the time the news began to cover Ricky's death, it proved to be the final wake-up call for many still within the group,
how the fuck?
as they finally began to see through the facade that had once controlled their lives.
Like Grandpa says, prayer is powerful. When we pray, things will happen and things will be different.
It's difficult to watch any of Life with Grandpa, knowing its history, its purpose, and the real people that it was inspired by. Though as soon as the media began taking notice of the cult, many members were made to purge the media that was sent to them that may be considered incriminating. And as a result, it appears that most of Life with Grandpa is missing to this day, and potentially destroyed forever. Currently, only 4 episodes have been recovered, and it's not even known how many more were released, or even what year the show started or ended. But considering how closely the show mirrored the book, it's possible that these potentially missing and destroyed episodes are much worse than the ones we have today. But despite not knowing the full extent of the show, it's clear that Life with Grandpa and the countless other programs that the family made did exactly what they wanted them to. They brainwashed an entire generation of the cult's children, and the effects were devastating.
But they become extremely agitated when we ask them about Moses David Berg's teachings on sex.
My Little Fish. Now, your father described that as a routine publication.
They're not having sex, they're just kissing and hugging in bed. That's not sex.
If you show it to other people, they don't understand. That stuff's not supposed to be publicized. So many people think sex is wrong. So many people hate us. But we just telling them the truth. We're just telling them it's not wrong. We're just telling them that there's nothing wrong with it. And here come these publicizers doing them to everybody.
Between the strange content from the program itself, its obvious attempts at indoctrinating kids into a cult that was only ever going to harm them, the real-life people behind the characters, and the fact that this propaganda was so effective, I have no doubt that Life with Grandpa is the darkest children's show that I've ever come across. Though shockingly, there's somehow one more layer to the story that makes this program even more disturbing.
Why it gets worse, Nick? Peter the puppet.
Now, here's the exciting ending to this story.
One thing that we haven't discussed yet is who was actually the one behind the creation of the show. There's no doubt that it's David Berg's stories and was probably done at his request, but who was the one actually making it? Well, unfortunately, most of the people who worked on the show have their identities hidden by only using their first names, or even using straight-up aliases, so I could hardly find any information on any of them, with the exception of one: Peter Puppet. Peter Puppet was sort of a celebrity within the group, being responsible for numerous puppet shows, including one called The Lovettes, which was actually far more popular than Life with Grandpa, and was even supposedly broadcast on TV in the Philippines, with the show being a disturbing rabbit hole in its own right.
Would you like to hear a story? Well then, let's go see Grandpa in the garden. Hello, children.
so nice of you to visit us in the
Oh,
garden
he has a
today.
real hand
But Peter
without.
Puppet owned this group and was in charge of the Lovettes team. And coincidentally, the Lovettes just so happened to be credited as the producers of Life with
85?
Grandpa. So Peter Puppet was, at the very least, one of the contributing creators of the show. And he also seems to be the one in charge of performing the actual musical numbers on the show, as they featured puppets that belonged to Peter and the Lovettes team, with these segments interestingly being credited to an unknown man named Peter Pioneer.
We have a beautiful song from Peter Pioneer.
It's not a concrete link, but it's clear that Peter Puppet had a role in the show's creation, and helped push the family's disturbed
Peter
ideology onto hundreds of kids across the globe. But during the creation of Life with Grandpa, it seems his own beliefs were being tested. In the beginning of the video, we saw an example of the family's view on doctors.
Surely a doctor would have stitched it, but our God is still a God of miracles. Praise the Lord.
This sentiment was really common in the family, as Berg outright forbade any medicine or surgeries of any kind, instead preaching that miracles from God were the only way to heal. And because of this, many members of the family with chronic ailments or fatal illnesses were basically left to die. And one of those left suffering was Peter Puppet. His life is almost entirely a mystery, as he lived in hiding in one of the family's compounds, but according to some of the group's members, one day he noticed something in his neck, a small lump, and over the next few weeks and months it began to slowly get bigger and bigger, to the point that Peter had to go visit a doctor in order to see what was wrong. And it was there he learned that inside of him was an aggressive tumor that was only going to get larger. The good news was the tumor was actually operable and could be removed with little risk to his life, but the bad news was surgeries were against the family's beliefs, and so he turned it down, instead opting to go back to the compound to pray the tumor away with the other members. This, however, never happened. Instead, the mass began to grow at an even faster rate, to the point that those around him could notice it, eventually leading to Peter hiding away in his room, away from the others, not wanting to be seen. However, at some point during his struggle, a photograph was taken, showing the entire compound he was living with.
What the heck? Where's his
And
neck?
in the background, we see Peter, whose neck is impossibly large. From here, it said that Peter began to beg the family to take him to get this surgery, as the tumor was quite literally suffocating him slowly, turning him against the very beliefs that he once forced upon so many children over the years. But the family forbade it, insisting that he wait for a miracle that was never going to come. With nowhere else to turn, Peter Puppet supposedly ended his own life shortly after this photograph was taken, adding the final pillar of context to Life with Grandpa, a program that can only be described as the darkest children's show ever created.
We've got to go now. Let's wave bye-bye, kids.
Dude, this
God
isn't
bless
even
you. Come on, say
a real
bye-bye.
show, technically.
Bye-bye.
This is insane. Holy fuck.
Bye.
There's only 4 episodes. Epilogue?
Driven by hunger and filled with fear.
That's spooky, dude.
I must arise and go.
I don't want to listen to this guy sing. David Berg died natural causes, 1994. He was never convicted of a single crime. Continues her husband's legacy by... They lead it to this day? She has not been photographed or publicly seen since 2010. Sakura left the family and went into hiding. She is last seen living in Costa Rica in 2018 working with Seeds of Hope. Dude, these people need to be a charity specializing in helping vulnerable women and children. Dude, that's fake. Upon learning of her true identity, Seeds of Hope severed ties with her, and she has never been seen again. Whoa. Taki would later speak out against what her brother did, claiming that no abuse ever took place, that Ricky was simply disturbed. Fucking stupid cunt. Which remains the family to this day. Due to the statute of limitations, many of the victims of the family were likely never receive justice for what they deserve. The family continues to operate with strict rules against abuse of children. How do you just grow away from that? That shit was wild, dude. Whack. However, they have never disavowed David Berg's teachings. Yo. That was fucked. Spooky video. like and subscribe. I love you. Bing, bing, bong.